Nick from Patchwerks here, and today I'm going to be talking about the new module from Create Audio called the Function Junction. You can see it right here, and it's a pretty simple module, but I like a lot of the stuff that Create Audio does to sort of simplify things in Modular as well as keeping the cost down. So the Function Junction here, you can see, is actually kind of three different function generators. At the top, we have an ADSR, then we have a AD looping envelope, and just an LFO. And I think this is kind of unique because usually we're looking at things like maths or the Rampage, or there are like ADSR modules out there, but to combine both an ADSR and an AD and an LFO, you actually kind of have a lot of the modulation sources you'll find in more traditional synthesizers, standalone desktop boxes and such. In fact, there's a lot of hype on the ARP 2600 right now, and when you see what function generators that has, it has an ADSR and an attack decay envelope. So you got that plus the LFO. Super fun, you could do a lot with it, and it particularly plays well with keyboards, ADSRs do. So in this demo, I'm gonna actually be using the keystep 37 here. But yeah, I already went over the three different channels that this has, and when we look at the patch bay up top here, you can see that we have an out for the ADSR, as well as just the trigger in and the ability to loop the ADSR. There's also a button here to loop it. There's also a button here to make the ADSR longer too, in case you want really long envelopes. For the function generator, the attack decay, you have your Fin, which allows you to trigger this, Fmod, which allows you to change the attack or decay lengths by hitting the buttons here and patching in control voltage, as well as an attenuverter. And then in terms of outputs, you get your envelope, which goes from 0 to 5 volts. I believe that the attack decay goes about to like 0 to 10 or so. We could check that out on the scope later. And then the end of trig. So you could use this to signal other envelope generators to trigger out the output. And then the LFO is very basic, which I actually kind of like how easy this is to use. You just have a rate knob, that's it, and triangle out and square out. And then the last thing here, and this is what makes the function junction, if you will, is that we have a mixer. So here you see 1, 2, 3. The A is for the ADSR, F is for the function generator, L is for the LFO. So you could just imagine those are automatically normal there, or you could pass in your own envelopes, your own audio, and these are going to be your bipolar mixing elements for output 1, 2, 3. So it's kind of cool. You could use it just for attenuating the signal. I know that the LFO comes out about 10 volts peak to peak, actually more than that. It goes from -10 to about +10, plus or minus a volt. So you could really dial it back, which is great. And then if you patch out of here, it removes it from the mix. And then we also have one more output here. That's the logical OR. You could use that to shave off any negative components of the signal. So it's really cool. I'll show you some demonstrations there. But what's with all this talking without some sound demos? So I'll show you how to patch this thing. So right now, I have my key step down here, and my volt per octave is going into the mod of the synth voice by Maleko, and Roland. It's great. It's a standalone synth voice, but all it needs is envelopes. And guess what? Function gives us lots of envelopes. So got the volt per octave going in there, and then up here we have our gate from the keyboard. So right now, no sound. I have my output going here, but I need to patch in my envelopes down here. So first things first, we'll take one gate and put it into our ADSR. I'll turn my filter up so we'll just get sounds immediately. Take my envelope out and patch it into my VCA mod. So right now we should be just like an ADSR, no surprises there. And I like ADSRs with keyboards because I like this sort of piano struck sound where I have the decay low and my sustain low. So you could hear that it's a really sharp strike and then it dips immediately. Play with that release too. Cool. All right. So now let's, usually in a patch like this though, I like to use the ADSR going into my filter. So I'm just going to take this and patch it over to my filter, take another output off my gate and put it into my function generator. Let's turn off the mod there. And we'll just use that for the amplitude. I really like that strike sound on the filter. So we'll take our function out, patch it into our VCA. Our filter is already patched to the ADSR, and we'll turn down our filter. So it's just really easy. Now we actually have a really basic synth patch just using the function junction. Control our amplitude, length from the decay here, or attack to give it a little bit of whooshing up. Same thing with our filter. And now, guess what? We have one more element that's fun to play around with, and that's our LFO. Let's use that to patch into our pulse width modulation. So I'm just going to take our triangle wave, patch it into our pulse width modulation in. And so. So that sounds pretty good. Yeah, so got a basic synth voice setup using the function generator. It's super well laid out. Easy to kind of play around with your envelopes without having to reach in between chords because the panel is laid out really nicely. But in this patch, we did nothing with our junction part. A big disappointment, I know, but I'll show you a cool patch here. So what I want to do is actually use this OR output. I want that envelope to go up, and when it's going down, I want to trigger the function generator to add some blips. So it's gonna go up, go down, and then when it sustains and maybe decays, you're gonna hear wah, 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 just at the end. And we could accomplish that with some clever voltage mixing here. So to accomplish this, what I wanna do is, I'm actually going to have to loop the function generator, and we can't use that for our amplitude. So what I'm gonna do is actually just take the mod in straight out the gate out. So we're gonna have just like an on-off for our amplitude. That's how that sounds. And then what I wanna do is whenever I'm holding down a key, I want to turn loop on over here. Now this is interesting because if I was just gonna take my gate out of the keyboard and run it into the trigger, you're gonna see that it, actually put it into the loop. Sorry about that. You're gonna see that it turns loop on and off. So when the gate's high, it turns it on and it latches, and when the gate's high the second time, it turns it off and latches. That's not what I want because I want the loop to stay on when I push the key. So what I want to do here is actually take this gate and use something like our after-later audio GNT. I run the gate in here, and the GNT is going to give me two gate signals, one on the rise and one on the fall. And that's exactly what I need. If I take those and sum them together here on our palette cases Unity mixer, you're going to see now when I push down the key and let go, now I'm getting two pulses, and that's exactly what I want. So I'll take that output, run it into my loop. And here's one more note about the loop, is that if I hold down mod plus loop, it assigns where that loop goes. So I just did that there, and now it's going to loop my ADSR. And if I do it again, then it's going to loop my function generator. So now you can see that when I push down the key, my function generator is looping, and when I remove it, no longer looping. Excellent. So now let's create that new envelope to send into our filter. I'm going to no longer patch out of the ADSR. I'm going to patch out of the mix here in normals across. So 1, 2, 3 are going through here. I'm just going to set these at noon. And I'll show you two patches here actually. So if I turn output 1 up, that's just only our ADSR. If I turn output 2 up, now you're going to hear the sum of the two. So you're going to hear the motion from the function generator on top of the ADSR. So it's cool because we're animating the filter twice. Once with the ADSR and then sort of the LFO that we're getting from the function generator. But the thing is that what I want is when it passes a certain part of the sustain, I want to then hear the function generator. I don't want to hear it when, say, if I have a long attack. Let's see here. I don't want to hear it on the attack there. I only want to hear it on the decay and past a certain sustain. So that's where I use my OR. If I go out here, turn down my sustain, turn my output 2 up. Let's see here. You could hear. Once it gets past that hump, that's where we're getting the movement from that function generator. It's pretty cool, right? And then the last thing I want to do is utilize this LFO. So the LFO, like I said, comes out super duper hot. And we do have an attenuator on the mod, but I want to actually attenuate it twice. So instead of coming out of my LFO, which is already doing some pulse width modulation, I come out of my mix 3. And when I go into my mod here and set my mod to say decay, so it's cool. We're creating really interesting kind of shapes with our envelope generator now. And a lot of it is just coming from self-patching on the function generator and then animating something like a synth voice. So I hope that was informative. There's lots of cool things that you could do with combos of ADSRs, function generators, LFOs, and especially when you have that ability to mix. So that's why I think that the Create Audio Function Junction is actually a pretty cool module. Thanks so much for tuning in, and happy patching.